her to get her ass beat.
So. Trump turns around and now they saying that Trump is blaming DEI for the plane crash. Let's look into this.
Their own safety to retrieve the bodies of plane passengers from the dark waters of the Potomac River. And families are sitting in rooms stunned and mourning, desperate for word of their loved ones. You might expect the President of the United States to not just offer condolences, but also measured words promising a thorough investigation. Well, President Trump did offer words condolences and a moment of silence, but that was followed by a press conference in which he blamed efforts to improve diversity in the workforce and past Presidents Obama and Biden.
I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. A group within the FAA, another story, determined that the workforce was too white, that they had concerted efforts to get the administration to change that and to change it immediately. This was in the Obama administration, but they actually came out with a directive too white. And we want the people that are competent.
So keeping them honest, the FAA's language about diversity was present.
So tell me, where in the hell is he blaming black folk for the plane crash? Where is he blaming?
During the first Trump administration as well. It basically was an effort to follow federal law and not discriminate against people with disabilities, particularly, by the way, veterans with injuries or disabilities that they suffered in combat. In fact, increasing federal hiring of qualified people who happen to have disabilities, that's been a goal of government agencies since the 1970s. Here's a version of the FAA webpage on diversity. It was captured by the Internet Archive in December 2020, his last full month as president. And it talks about diversity and inclusion and how it's, quote, integral to achieving FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient travel across our nation and beyond. Now, the Department of Transportation.
But at the same time, you hire people with mental disabilities for air traffic control. Why would you hire people with mental and psychiatric disabilities to be in charge of air traffic control? And then when he talks about the military, that's a whole different story. Them people, before they signed up for the military, nothing was wrong with them. Which means they were mentally qualified, and that when they went and served, most of the trauma comes from the times that they served in combat. You people is sitting there hiring people with mental and psychiatric disabilities for jobs that are basically that includes public safety, keeping other people's lives safe, and you gonna turn around and say, well, Donald Trump is being racist for blaming DEI. When you literally have air traffic control literally coming out and saying they even have a lawsuit against them for not hiring the people because they were white. So you more focus on racism than the actual qualifications.
Transportation has tried to increase its hiring of people with what they call targeted disabilities, meaning people with intellectual, psychiatric disabilities, but also deafness, blindness, and paralysis. The FAA has always stated, though, that anyone hired would have to meet qualifications of the job. And this, again, was the policy under Donald Trump's first administration. Daniel Dale notes in his fact check that the FAA wrote in 2019 that the, quote, candidates in this program will receive the same rigorous consideration in terms of aptitude, medical, and security qualifications as those individuals considered for a standard public opening for air traffic controller jobs. President Trump did later in his news conference today backpedal a bit.
We don't know that necessarily it's even the controller's fault.
On DEI and the claims that you've made, are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring? And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. The people in the helicopter should have seen where they were going. I can't imagine people with 20/20 vision not seeing, what's happening up there.
So he's kind of all over the place. He was blaming diversity. Then he's saying that maybe it wasn't the air traffic controller's fault, suggesting that the pilots in the helicopter were the problem, should have seen. Then he seemed to be unsure of his accusations about diversity hiring. At a signing ceremony later in the day, he said this.
Mr. President, to be clear, are you saying race or gender played a role in this tragedy?
It may have. Incompetence might have played a role. We'll let you know that.
Pete, when you heard this, what did you think?
I put my head in my hands. I could not believe what I was hearing. Unpresidential and pretty unhinged, frankly, because DEI has been a focus of this administration, and in the hour and 40 minutes prior to this accident happening here, Sean Duffy, in one of his first acts as transportation secretary, sent out a press release rescinding DEI policies at the FAA. But I have to tell you, as the product of a woman pilot, airplanes don't know the difference. The control tower does not know the difference. And really, DEI hiring has not changed the face of aviation all that much. It's a predominantly white male-dominated industry. And so, I also have to think and empathize for the families. My mom died in a plane crash when I was a teenager. I know what it's like to be sort of thrust into the unknown of that. These families are going through hell right now. And this comment from the president really even made it that much more hellish by throwing uncertain sort of conspiracy theories on this. It's not really helpful. And he really got ahead of his skis when it comes to this investigation. Like you say, it was going to take a lot of time and probably years. There were going to be hearings. I mean, there's still parts of the airplane on the floor of the Potomac here, 8 feet underwater. And so this is much, much, much too soon to make any sort of indictment on any sort of policy and any sort of person in aviation.
And the other part of this was one big question, and understandably a concern that Americans have right now is it safe for me to fly? And that's something that a lot of people are asking. The U.S. is known for its safety, and commercial airliners, we haven't seen a crash like this in over 20 years. But Trump reassured Americans twice during that briefing when we were in the room that, yes, it is safe to fly. But then he was questioning whether air traffic controllers had psychological problems.
If you think there's blind people and people with serious psychological issues in the air traffic control booths, that would make you want to question whether you should fly. That is not the case. Anybody who's there has gone through rigorous training. There may be staffing issues, and all that will be uncovered. But there are very strict qualifications to be an air traffic controller, which we'll talk about. Caitlin, thanks, Pete Montine. During that same signing ceremony, this is what President Trump said when asked if he would visit the site of the crash.
Do you have a plan to go visit the site or meet with any of the first responders?
I have a plan to visit, not the site, because you tell me what's the site, the water?
Or to meet with the first responders down there?
I don't have a plan to do that, but I will be meeting with some people that were very badly hurt with their family member, obviously.
CNN senior political commentator Van Jones joins us now. Van, at first I wasn't sure we would talk to you tonight as a political commentator, but the fact that the president brought politics into this, and particularly DEI hiring, I'm wondering what your reaction to his claim without any evidence that, trying to hire more Black people or disabled veterans, which is what the FAA website, frankly, focuses a lot on, disabled veterans. Why he brought that up?
You know, it's appalling. It's appalling, and I just can't imagine what these families must be going through. Look, I have flown in and out of that airport, and so have you, more times than I can possibly count. It is every family's worst nightmare to say goodbye to someone, to them to be texting you as they're taking off, and then you never see them again, and you worry, how did they die, and how much pain was there, and you're going through all this, and meanwhile, the president of the United States is acting like a kindergartner, just essentially making up stuff.
Acting like a kindergartner, Van Jones, you have been seen to be the most whiniest goddamn person in media history. The most whiniest goddamn person in media history, and you talking about Donald Trump acting like a child. You cry for almost everything. You literally cry for every doggone thing, Van Jones. But nonetheless, let's keep it going.
Making fun of people with disabilities, all kind of conjecture. This is not the right way to proceed in a situation like this. Also, something went wrong here. Something went wrong here. We need to find out what went wrong here so it doesn't happen again. The President of the United States fired a bunch of people for no reason who are supposed to be in charge, and he's taking his usual no responsibility. So the blamer-in-chief, rather than being the consoler-in-chief, is behaving in a way that's appalling. It's just appalling. And by the way, we are now, 9 days into this, 10 days into this? You know, are we just going to blame Black and brown people for everything that happens for the next 4 years? Every problem is a DEI problem. Every problem is some brown immigrant. Like, why run for president?
You had no problem blaming everything on white supremacy when it came to all the personal stuff that happened to Black and brown people in their personal life. Black people don't have that much marketing and capitalism. That's white supremacy. Black folks are not at the top of the stratosphere when it comes to economics. That's white supremacy. Y'all have no problems blaming white supremacy for pretty much everything. But now that you're getting your own taste of your own medicine, you don't like it.
President, if you're not going to take care of the people of the United States in a time like this.
It's also part of a strategy, and it's, he throws this out, and obviously, I mean, as a reporter, you have to raise, the fact that what he's saying is, there's no evidence of it, and it just flies against the facts. But it also distracts from the fact that he had not appointed an interim head of the FAA, or, I mean, it is a way of diverting attention, in fact.
That's apparently the playbook. And this is the problem.
Wow.
It's a big problem. There are going to be many, many times, many, many moments where something bad happens in America, where you need the commander-in-chief to step forward, to lead a process, to figure out what's going on, to comfort victims, to bring us together as a country. And apparently, this is not in the job description of Donald Trump. Instead of doing the things that you need a president to do, you need a president. You need somebody to put, this is a horrific accident. There's no way around it. And the people who died in a horrible way. We need leadership. We need comfort. We need clarity. We need answers. We need someone who's going to, by the way, if you misidentify the problem, you misidentify the solution, and this could happen again. And this should never happen again. Blaming DEI for no reason may make it happen again.
And this is why they are just plain stupid. Because he didn't definitively blame DEI. He said that might be part of the problem. And he explained exactly what he meant when he said it, too. But these people, they just jumping around the bush. They just gonna say, oh, he blaming black and brown people for, first of all, these DEI programs don't even benefit black and brown people that much. They are the last group of people to actually benefit from it. They know this. Everybody knows this. It has been literally documented as such that black and brown people are the least to benefit when it comes to these DEI programs. So again, they defending something that's working against their own best, working against in their own best favor, but because they don't like the president, they're gonna defend it anyways.
So, Brandon, it's unclear if this is temporary or permanent. We did reach out to the CDC for comment. They did not get back with us in time for this story.
Yeah, this is something that a lot of people want to pay attention to because you have a bunch of marginalized people who feared that this would happen if President Trump got into office, which has happened. So it's been a very turbulent couple weeks for certain groups in our country. So we'll see how this continues to unfold.
The FAA estimates that its air traffic organization handled 45,000 commercial flights in the United States every single day. There are 5,400 aircraft in the American skies at a time, at the busiest times of a given day. 2.9 million people fly in and out of the United States airports every single day. And every single one of those people deserves to feel safe and be safe on those flights. Every single one of those people is entitled to know what went wrong in the mid-air collision over the Potomac River, which killed 60 passengers, 4 aircrew, and 3 soldiers on Wednesday. And every single one of those passengers deserves to hear the truth and a commitment to getting real answers from the U.S. president. One who can assure the public that the full power of the government will be brought to bear to ensure that the safest aviation regimen in the world will sustain, and that accidents like the one that happened on Wednesday will never happen again. Instead, here's what we got.
We do not know what led to this crash, but we have some very strong opinions and ideas, and I think we'll probably state those opinions now. I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they want them, they can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so. They put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program. The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism all qualify for the position of a controller of airplanes pouring into our country, pouring into a little spot, a little dot on the map, a little runway.
I'm trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense. Okay.
Okay, I guess. Aside from the fact that everything he just said is extremely offensive, it's irresponsible and it is a danger to public safety. At a time of tragedy and unbearable grief for 67 families, at a time when we need answers and assurances, President Donald Trump decided to blame a plane crash on DEI with zero evidence. Zero. Donald Trump implied that the laudable mission to achieve diversity in America caused innocent people to die, and it's nothing short of disgraceful. This is not a moment for hot takes, for speculation, for misinformation of any sort from anyone, but especially not from the president in a moment of tragedy. It's not just callous. It stands in the way of the real work that lies ahead. The only work now is to investigate this crash. And America, through the FAA and the National Transportation Safety Board, is the gold standard. The last fatal commercial aviation crash in the United States was in 2009, 16 years ago. We haven't had one since. And that's because of what we learned from that crash and the changes that were implemented in its wake. Colgan Air, then a feeder for Continental Airlines, Flight 3407, took off from Newark Liberty Airport in New Jersey and crashed just outside of Buffalo. There was light snow, fog, and sleet at the time. 50 people died, everyone on the plane and one person in the home that the plane crashed into. The families of the victims demanded answers and reform, and they got it. Exactly 1 year after the crash, the NTSB released its final report, which came to 46 specific conclusions. 46. That's how thorough the investigation was. That's how thorough they always are, because the experts at the NTSB don't have hot takes. They just do the work. The conclusions they arrived at included the fact that both pilots lacked experience with icing conditions. They possibly misread safety warnings, and they were both exhausted and fatigued. The first officer had flown to the departing airport in New Jersey from her parents' home in Seattle the night before. She made that commute on a cargo plane and rode in the jump seat, which is typically an auxiliary folding seat, not sufficiently comfortable for resting. After the crash, the FAA enacted sweeping changes to regulations. The FAA mandated more rest for pilots and increased the amount of hours of flight training experience needed for all pilots. For every commercial flight in America, U.S. air travel has not been without incident since. But our skies have been much, much safer. A similar thing happened after 9/11. The U.S. had never experienced a terror attack of that magnitude using planes. At the time, we didn't know what we didn't know, but action was taken. Changes were made. The NTSB says the preliminary report on this week's fatal plane crash will be ready in 30 days. A full investigation may take a year. That's the time they need, because they are experts. Changes will be made, and we will all be safer because of it. And we should believe them when they say that, and we should allow them the space to do their investigation without interference from anybody, but especially not from the president. According to a former NTSB investigator,
But wait a minute. If the president didn't say nothing, y'all would have been bitching about that. If he didn't say anything, y'all would have been fussing about that too. So once again, they mad at him again because he calling it out for what it is.
NTSB is the only agency allowed to release factual information about an investigation. The president, the defense secretary, the transportation secretary should not have been commenting on investigative matters. In the past, the NTSB has removed parties to investigations for doing exactly what we saw Donald Trump do. There are dozens of potential reasons why that helicopter may have collided with that airplane, and no evidence suggests that any of them have to do with DEI. The experts at the NTSB do not have answers right now, and neither does President Trump. Make no mistake, Trump's illogical and offensive accusations against disabled people or people of color or people with dwarfism, that was not in the pursuit of answers or solutions to this crash. This is just Trump's way of furthering his own political agenda, which is to disparage and dismantle diversity in America. He made the choice to stand behind that podium and blame whole groups of people, groups that are already marginalized in this country, for the deaths of civilians. No evidence, no facts, no truth. This might be a political game for Trump, but it affects real people in real time. In the hours after Donald Trump's press conference, a flurry of undue social media attention turned to a transgender pilot serving in the Virginia Army National Guard. Joe Ellis, a Black Hawk pilot, became the target of attacks and false claims that she was flying the helicopter that collided with the commercial jet. She was forced to post a proof of life video to Facebook in which she said, quote, "It is insulting to the families to try to tie this to some sort of political agenda. They don't deserve that. I don't deserve this." We all know that Trump has beef with DEI, and you can agree with him or you can disagree with him, but he cannot blame DEI for everything. Everything. Plenty of things went wrong in the United States before there was diversity, equity, and inclusion. Before companies and government agencies started prioritizing hiring more diverse and wholly qualified employees. Planes crashed when only straight white men flew them. and directed them in the skies. And we didn't blame them for the failures or inadequacies or tragedies. We didn't blame them for their gender or race. We looked for why the crashes happened and we solved for them. That's our work.
That's not what he did, but that's how y'all take it because you think he racist. Okay.
When things go south, we leave it to the experts to get the evidence, to find out what went wrong and to find solutions. Anything else is reckless endangerment of the American public. Joining me now, Eddie Glaude, Distinguished Professor of African American Studies at Princeton University.
Just like you want to sit here and y'all want to hire people with mental disabilities and psychiatric disabilities to basically operate air traffic control. And you want to sit here and you want to force the people to basically believe that makes sense. So I'm going to turn around and hire somebody with autism to basically turn around and have full-on control of the pilot that my ass has got a ride on. So you gonna hire somebody with a mental disability to basically be able to pilot airplanes like Spirit.
Tackle your rights and you need to evacuate the country. Hey, I don't know what else I'm supposed to say, right? I'm not entirely sure what to say in response to that. But
these people, they don't even care about meritocracy or qualifications. They just care about race and gender. That's it. Race and gender and all the other stuff that don't matter. You're discriminating against people who are mentally disabled. They shouldn't even be fucking. What the hell are y'all doing hiring people with mental and psychiatric disabilities? With mental and psychiatric disabilities to handle a job like air traffic control. Nobody is special or should get any other recognition over anybody else, right? Based off the identity. You get recognition based off your
and author of several books, including his latest, We Are the Leaders We Have Been Looking For, and Melissa Murray, professor of law at NYU, MSNBC legal analyst and co-host of the Strict Scrutiny podcast. Morning to both of you. Thank you for being here. Melissa, you and I have had a conversation in an entirely different context about the Chevron doctrine and the Supreme Court helping to dismantle the administrative state. And we always struggle with the idea that I think the average American doesn't really talk about the administrative state all that often, but it's the idea that we have agencies that are filled with experts that make determinations and come up with regulations. This is a continuation of that. This is a president chiming in with information he doesn't have, when in fact we have an infrastructure that involves the NTSB and the FAA that will get to the bottom of why that plane crashed, which is the reason why some of us will get on a plane today and some of us got on planes yesterday and the day before, even after a major airplane crash.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Ali. Elena Kagan of the Supreme Court has said that the administrative state is the way that we do government. It is government as we know it. We don't go to Congress to make regulations. Congress makes laws, but then delegates to agencies to make the regulations to enforce those laws. And that's basically how our government runs. Otherwise, it's too unwieldy, it's too big to actually be effective. And again, Congress doesn't necessarily have the expertise to regulate in a way that provides for the kind of safety and efficiency that we've come to expect from our government. But to link this to the president's attacks on DEI, it is worth noting that much of the administrative state is made up of a diverse workforce. 40% of federal workers identify as racial or ethnic minorities. So this assault on the deep state by what we might call the sheep state, because they're not questioning any of this, but that assault on the deep state is not simply an assault on the federal government and administrative agencies, it's also an assault on the many individuals who are people of color, who are women, who are disabled Americans, who are also working and providing those services to the public every day.
Without lowering any standards, because that's the mantra now, right? Pete Hegseth talks about it all the time. Why doesn't he like women in the military? Because they lower the standards for them. The president says when it comes to hiring, it should be about merit. Elon Musk talks about this all the time, that government agencies and companies need to, quote, restore the highest standards. This is, it's a slogan based on a lie.
Right. Absolutely, Ali. And I think it's important for us to say that and to repeatedly say it. What was revealed in the president's press conference around the tragic death of 67 people was that DEI is a cudgel. It is what he uses to describe, shall we say, the diminishment of standards as he understands it. So there is an assumption, Ali, that by definition, if people of color, black, brown, if women, if people who are disabled, if they are in positions of authority, if they are in positions that have any sort of influence, standards are immediately compromised. And we have to understand that for what it is. It is a deeply offensive. It is a claim. It is a racist claim. It is a sexist claim. It's an ableist claim. And so what does it mean to agree with it? And I think this is what we have to begin to unpack. Now that we know what they mean by DEI, what does it mean for government agencies and for businesses to actually respond to this definition of DEI? They're conceding to what I take to be a white Christian nationalist agenda.
I apologize in advance to both of you because you are two of the most highly educated people we have on this show. So I'm gonna play you something from what Melissa, from what Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, said with respect to this crash, and then I'm going to ask you about it on the other end. Let's listen.
When you are flying on an airplane with your loved ones, which every one of us in this room has, do you pray that your plane lands safely and gets you to your destination, or do you pray that the pilot has a certain skin color? I think we all know the answer to that question.
I don't even know what the question means, let alone know the answer to that question. Creating some kind of dichotomy that we shouldn't value diversity over safety, which means I don't know what you think she's saying. I don't know what she's saying.
She basically saying you should value safety over diversity and one's skin color. That's what she's saying. But y'all don't understand that shit.
It's pretty clear that the question here is whether diversity can coexist with merit. And I think that answer, just simply based on this show, is yes, it can coexist with merit. It does coexist with merit. But this is something that this president and this administration has been absolutely assiduous in pushing, that these two values are absolutely incompatible. And whenever you have diversity, you have a diminution of standards. And that's simply not the case. I mean, again, we are talking about DEI just weeks after we confirmed an individual who, under the prevailing standards for the Department of Defense, would not have been confirmed as Secretary of Defense only 10 years ago. So, I mean, the whole question of whether standards has been lowered really does seem to be rich given this context. But I want to just emphasize this assault on the deep state
because he wouldn't have been confirmed, because you guys would have said that he's a misogynistic and he's racist, and so therefore he should not be voted in. You guys would have done that 10 years ago. You guys would have done that 10 years ago. And we would have been looking at some doggone black female who looked like Corinne Stephens that ain't got no motherfucking qualifications, ain't been in combat a day in her damn life, but because of she's a woman and she's black, she would have got it. She would have got the job 10 years ago. She would have gotten it 10 years ago. All because of two things: woman and she black.
Connection of the administrative state with diversity, equity, and inclusion This is about rolling back the gains of the civil rights movement. It's about eliminating a sector of employment that has actually been pivotal to African Americans and other minorities getting a toehold in the middle class. This is about rolling back those.
This ain't got nothing to do with the civil rights movement. Let's stop. This ain't got nothing to do with the civil rights movement. Boy, y'all got to be the most retarded goddamn
gains, rolling back that prosperity and putting a group of people in their place. This is about reestablishing, re-entrenching a form of racial and gender hierarchy.
This is an important point, Eddie. Let's mine this a little bit, because there were far more plane crashes before there was anything called DEI, before we had diversity in the federal workforce, before there were any pilots other than the Tuskegee Airmen there were no commercial, there were virtually no commercial black pilots, there were no women. Planes crashed a lot more, and that has a lot more to do with technology and where we are and safety. We didn't blame white people for the crashing of planes, nor should we have. We learned how to investigate plane crashes carefully and properly and come up with recommendations. Now it's about something else. Now it's
ain't nobody blaming black people, but y'all keep saying that he blaming black people. That's not something that he said. But y'all gonna keep saying that because of DEI. And the thing is, y'all defend DEI so much, but it basically benefits everybody else before it benefits you as a group of people. You are the last group of people to actually benefit from these DEI programs in the federal government. White liberal women are the top ones that benefited, and then it's the LGBTQ, and then it's black folk. But let these goofy ass black liberals tell it, oh, this is all about black and brown people. No, it's not. You're blaming it on an ideology, which it has nothing to do with race. But let's keep going. It's
about standards and diversity because, as Melissa points out, we have a more equitable federal workforce.
Right, and we need to understand that shit for what it is, right? It is a decidedly racist and sexist and masculinist agenda. I think we need to be able to name it, Allie. We've been tracking prior to his election as president the influence of white nationalism, of white Christian nationalism on.
Stop trying to emasculate the men of your own country, you fucking idiots. That's the biggest that's one of the problems. You're trying to emasculate the men who built the doggone country that you live in. You calling them sexist, racist, misogynistic, all because they're speaking out on the qualifications of these people. This is why you niggas lost. And why you niggas is getting walked away from. You keep emasculating the same men that you want to support your political party. You sound just like a freaking black woman who emasculate the same men that they want to turn around and pay their bills. That they want to turn around and get to pay their bills. How do you continuously do that and then think that things are going to continue to move forward? They're not. We mutually agreed that the cast will be promoting the film separately. This is absolutely stupid, dumb. It's the dumbest freaking argument. These people should not even be able to be even called to the front of the doggone Senate as a representation of black people in the first place, because they make black people look bad and they make black people look stupid. They make black people as if they are too sensitive. And most of all, they make black people seem to be as if they are weak-minded. You calling it sexist, misogynist because somebody holding you accountable? Because somebody calling out what it may be for what it is?
For the opportunity to be imperfect and to be given the space to learn and
This is absolutely fucking retarded.
dedication.
Retarded and stupid.
Sign his name to it. Remember when she was taking all those hits? Because everybody could see.
On the Trump campaign, we were talking about its elements in Project 2025, and now we see it show up in policy, and we're not using the language. Why not?
And they love to bring up Project 2025. I don't see none of his executive orders that even talk about, that even show Project 2025 in the first place. Oh, we may have an executive order like banning transgenders from the military that's probably up in there. But other than that, all them other damn executive orders, those are executive orders that the people agree, that the people voted for in the first place.
Y'all, you tell me I'm just really pissed off. This comes from, if you don't know, I'm sure you
But this is what you get when you got a bunch of Negroes who think that just because they done read a book that they done read a book that makes them overly qualified to be a representative of the black community. Oh, and let's not forget they black.
We're relitigating the mid-20th century. We're relitigating the Black freedom struggle. We're relitigating the women's movement. We're relitigating the gay liberation movement. We need to understand what's motivating it. And let's be clear, and I just have to say this, right? Every time the country tires of the quest for racial justice, it falls into this illusion, this fantasy of trying to get rid of us, of trying to move us to the margins, to banish difference. That's the only way I know.
Because you guys are discriminating. You're becoming the same exact oppressors that you used to fight against. Now you discriminating against them by saying that, oh, you're too white, so we can't give you this job. We have to go by
Send them on their way.
okay,
Take Juba out right quick while I finish getting dressed.
a certain policy that allows us to basically hire a certain amount of group of people. But now that we calling it out, y'all asses is saying racism. Yeah, okay. So this is what they choosing to do as representations of black people. And these folk think that just because they got a book or they got some type of education, that they know what they're doing. Ladies and gentlemen, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.